Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Myself Bharat, working as assistant professor in Vrindavan College, Bangalore. Today I am discussing about preparation of cost sheet. Let's get in. So before getting into a format of cost sheet, we will go through and see the concept behind the preparation of cost sheet. So total cost, your total cost can be, or it is, the total cost is depending on three important factors. One is your materials, material cost, then labor cost, then your expenses. Okay, then again it is divided into two subcategories. One is direct, another one is indirect. All three has been divided into same way: direct, indirect. Okay, I will make it more clear. Direct materials, indirect materials, direct labor, indirect labor, direct expenses, indirect expenses. Okay, now what will happen? All your direct expenses will combine together, and from all this direct material, direct labor, and your direct expenses, if you add these three factors, you will get prime cost. This is the first step of your preparation of cost sheet. Okay, by adding direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses, you will get a prime cost. That is the first step. So what is the next step? We have to add your indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. How it will add? It will comes in your overheads. Okay, this will comes in your overheads. So this overhead has been divided into another three subcategories. One is production, next is administrative, another one is selling and distribution. Okay, cost sheet for the period of, so the format will be particulars, total cost, cost per unit. Okay, now the first will be the opening stock of direct raw material. So whatever the stock of a raw material which is there when you are opening a book of account for the period. For example, I have started the accounting year in the month of April. Okay, at the time of May, at the end of May, I have around 1,000 units which are belongs to previous month, that is not utilized, that will be carry forward to April. That will be the opening stock of direct raw material. So this is a closing stock in the month of May. It will be the opening stock in the month of April. That will be the opening stock. So you have to add the purchase which is happening during the period of books of account which is I am preparing. So purchase, I have to add carriage inward. So during the purchase I have any expenses apart from my purchase, or for the aid of purchase. For example, for carrying a goods from one place to another place, I have paid some of the labor which is present in the purchasing area, so that will be there. Or transportation, these things will comes as a carriage inward, so that is aid to your purchase. Then add other expenses on purchase. If any excess of purchase are there, that has to be add for the particular period. Then less closing stock of direct raw material. So what is the material which is left in my storeroom during the closing of this particular period? So if I have add and deduct these things, I will get what I will get: the cost of direct material consumed. How much direct material I have consumed? For this, how I will calculate? First I will take a opening stock of direct material, then I will add the purchase, I will add the carriage inward, then I will add the other expenses which is belongs to the purchase, then I will deduct closing stock of the direct material, then I will get the cost of direct material. Next will be your direct wages. So next heading will be your direct wages. then direct expenses, if I add your direct material, direct wages and direct expenses, I will get the prime cost. This will be called as a prime cost. So next I have to add factory overheads. What will be there in the factory overheads? First will be indirect material. First will be your indirect materials. Next, what will be there? Indirect wages. What is indirect material? The materials which are used to produce the product indirectly. Wages, it is not directly involved in your production, but indirectly it is involved in your production. Then fuel and power, factory rent and taxes, insurance. This will be for the factory. If the insurance is there for the factory, then it will come only for the insurance which are for the factory. Next, factory lighting, only for the factory, not for any other expenses, only the expenses which are belongs to the factory, that we have to consider here. So factory lighting, supervisor, we have to give a supervision expenses or a supervisor expenses, that we have to add here. Works stationery, so the stationery which are belongs to your factory. Let me draw some more line. If the factory is providing a facility of a canteen and any other welfare expenses that need to be considered, and the repair expenses of your factory, most important, workers salary, the salary of a workers, and depreciation of plant and machinery, then drawing of plant drawing office salaries. These salaries are purely belongs to the office which is present in your factory. Then internal transportation. So in this factory overhead I have to add these things. First is your indirect material, indirect wages, fuel and power, factory rent and taxes, insurance which is belongs to my factory, factory lighting, supervisor who are present and taking care of my factory, works stationery, so the stationery which is belongs to my factory overhead, canteen and welfare expenses, repair expenses, worker salary, depreciation on plant and machinery, drawing of office salary, the office which is present in the factory for taking care of these other other activities which are happening in the factory, and internal transportation, any transportation which is happened internally, that has to be added. Then what I have to less? I have to less the sales of scrap. The sales of scrap has to be deduct, and I have to add if I have a opening of work in progress. If any work in progress is present, I have to add. Okay, I have to less sales of scrap, I have to add opening of work in progress, means it is not completed, it is halfway done, or it is started, that will be there in the previous month. It is not completed, the task is not completed, that will be called as a work in progress, the opening of a work in progress. Then I have to less closing stock, closing stock of work in progress. So during this period also some works are pending, that is not completed. So if I add these factors, less of sales of scrap and add of opening stock of work in progress, then less closing stock of work in progress, I will get the cost. What this will be called as? This will be your work cost. Office and administrative overheads. So in this what we have to add? We have to add office salaries, director fees, office rent and rates, office stationery and printing, sundry office expenses, depreciation and repairs of office equipments. Next, depreciation on office furniture. Next, subscription to trade journals. The journals which are belongs to the trade, that will be added here. The subscription to the trade journals. Office lighting. So there is a factory lighting also, there is a office lighting also. The factory lightings will comes in the overheads of factory overheads, and the lighting which is belongs to office, that will comes to your office lighting. So office lighting. Establishment charges, directors traveling expenses, postage, legal charges, audit fees. So adding these things to my work cost, what I will get? I will get cost of production. After cost of production, so next add opening stock of finished goods. Less closing stock of finished goods. So adding and deducting the opening and closing stock to the cost of production, I will get cost of goods sold. Now add selling and distribution overheads. So in selling and distribution overheads, what and all those things we have to add? We have to add advertising, showroom expenses, bad debts. Bad debts belongs to your selling and distribution. Salesman's salary and expenses. Packing expenses. You have to be careful that the packing expenses will not come to under your factory overheads. Most of the students will confuse with this point that packing expenses will comes in factory overhead. Actually it will comes in your selling and distribution overheads. Carriage outward. See, carriage inward will comes in your direct material, but carriage outward will comes in your selling and distribution overhead. Expenses of delivery vans. So if I am providing a uh, facility for the uh, client that any delivery vans are provided from our end itself, that expenses will comes in your selling and distribution overhead. Next, collection charges. Traveling expenses. Sometime your executives has to visit to some other places, that expenses will comes in your selling and distribution. Cost of tenders, warehouse expenses. See, here also this point might confuse the student. It This warehouse expenses will not comes in your factory overheads, it will come in your selling and distribution, because warehouse is utilized and all the finished goods will kept there, and from there it will start distributing to the locations. Because of that it will comes in your selling and distribution, not in your factory overheads. Next, sales manager salaries, sales directors fees, showroom expenses, sales office expenses depreciation and repairs of delivery van expenses of sales branches by adding these things I will get total cost, or in some case they will call as a cost of sales. Okay, now I have to add profit, then I will get the sales. This is what your format of cost sheet. So now we have finished the format of cost sheet. Now if you see the length of this cost sheet, it is sometime it is the students are finding a difficulty to remember the steps. So for those students I am giving a tips how you can prepare your cost sheet by remembering the things. But you have to remember the overheads, what are the contents or what are the items will comes in which overheads it will lie into. So first we have to prepare a prime cost. So for the formula for prime cost is direct material plus direct labor plus direct expenses will lead me to prime cost. This will be the first step. Once you get the prime cost, next will be your work cost or factory cost. How to get the factory cost? Prime cost plus your factory overheads. So from factory overheads and prime cost I will get a work cost. So next step is your cost of production. How I will get the cost of production? Cost of production equals to works cost plus administrative overheads. So from once I will get a prime, how I will get a prime cost? From direct material, direct labor and direct expenses I got a prime cost. By adding factory overheads to the prime cost I will get a work cost. By adding administrative overhead cost I will get a cost of production. So the final stage will be total cost or cost of sales. How we will get? Cost of production plus selling and distribution overheads. So by adding selling and distribution to the cost of production, I will get a total cost. Thank you for watching. We will meet you in the next class.